Come Go is a new Western crime thriller set in the 1960s that is out in theaters right now. It stars Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. The film was directed by Thomas Bazooka, and it's a film that, like I said, takes place in the 1960s, and it's about this married couple who is trying to get over the death of their son, who died in a very tragic horse riding accident. After their son dies, his widow takes their grandson and she marries into a much more abusive and problematic family. The new husband decides to take the widow and the grandson and move back to his original home with the matriarch of that family. This movie is basically about Diane Lane and Kevin Costner trying to track down their grandson and this widow to try to bring them back to live with them. As you can imagine, complications arise. To be honest, we all know why you're here. We know that you're only here for Ma and Pa Kent. That's why you clicked on the video. That's why you're interested in this movie. Let's be honest, that's actually the biggest selling point of the movie. It's Ma and Pa Kent. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Man of Steel. In Man of Steel, they played Superman's parents, Ma and Pa Kent. Obviously, it's a treat, especially for DC fans, when we get to see these two hook up in a movie again. And in this one, they're once again playing a married couple. A lot of people, this is going to be some kind of headcanon story where this all takes place before Superman came to Earth. And so I'm gonna leave that to you guys. I'm not gonna talk about them as performers because, let's be honest, these two are two of the gold standards in Hollywood when it comes to acting. They give great performances in their sleep. They don't even really have to try that hard for them anymore. It just kind of happens. So I'm not gonna waste time talking about how great they were individually as performers. I'm gonna talk about their relationship because that's really what's pushing this movie through some of the slower moments. I'll get into more detail about this later, but this is definitely a slow burn. And the thing that keeps you watching, that keeps you somewhat invested, is Kevin Costner and Diane Lane and the way they fit together. They're one of those perfect married couples that's just been together so long that they just know the other person in their bones. They know them inside and out. They know them like the pages of a book. They know everything about the other person. In this movie, Kevin Costner is more reserved and to the point. He doesn't talk that much. He's kind of quiet. Diane Lane, she brings the warmth and the charisma, and she's very headstrong and determined. And so, again, they kind of fit perfectly together, not only as a couple that has been together for so long that they probably don't know life without each other, but also as a couple that just their personalities perfectly mesh with each other, okay? They fit together like peanut butter and jelly, milk and cookies, ass and titties. I mean, pretty much everything. It just goes together perfectly. As a slow burn movie, this movie takes its time going from location to location and setting up the mystery and setting up the clash between this married couple and this wild family that they're trying to rescue their grandson from. You do get a chance to appreciate some of the more subtle nuances of the filmmaking, some of the great cinematography and the lush landscaping that they were able to capture in these locations. There's kind of a muted palette to the coloring in here, but it also really benefits because it really highlights the wildlife that they're passing as they're going on this rural journey into the countryside. There's a switch that happens that I do have to prepare you for, though. The first half of this movie is really more like a character piece. Then the second half of this movie turns into a straight up thriller. And when I say thriller, I'm talking about a thriller with tension, and that is with a capital T. It gets to you, man. It gets under your skin. It gets in your bones. You feel it in almost every scene in the second half of this movie, whether it's the perfect use of the lack of music or the perfect use of subtle shaky cam. Maybe it's the fact that the camera work feels very claustrophobic and cluttered whenever there is characters that are in a scene and you just feel like shit is about to pop off at any moment. It's perfectly executed, and it leads to some very entertaining white knuckle sequences as the movie builds and builds and builds to a crescendo of violence in the second half. So if you're looking for a lot of tension in the second half and some exciting sequences where you're kind of like, oh shit, I don't know who's gonna get hurt and I don't know who's gonna survive. If you're also looking for a pretty good duo on screen as far as married couples fitting together, I think that definitely you're going to be a fan of this movie. You know what, before I get into the negatives of this movie, do you mind? I have a half-eaten mandarin orange here. So good. Fuck it, I'm thirsty, so gonna take some time here. It's that good quality H2O right there. A lot of you might feel like I just wasted your time by eating an orange and drinking some water, but hear me out. That was kind of the point. That is a perfect segue into my negatives for this movie, which deals with a lot of time waster scenes I personally feel like that are there in this film as part of the build-up leading to the second half. And there's a lot of slow moving scenes, and there's a lot of scenes that are there you feel like to build character, but it doesn't actually add to the characters. And definitely there are some moments that you're invested in, and there are other moments where you're kind of like, I feel like we could have just cut this out or skipped or gone straight to the point of what the story is trying to tell. When I say slow burn, I'm talking slow burn, like that sloth off of Zootopia type of slow, where it takes like 5 hours to do one thing. That's the first half of this movie, and that's gonna turn some people off. Bigger issue with this movie, though, is the lack of development and the lack of detail given to this family in the movie that is kind of the antagonist of the film. This is the Wee Boy family, as they're called in the movie and in the trailer. It's just, you don't really find out a lot about them. Sure, they're menacing a little bit and they're a little bit threatening, but that's really more due to the performances. The movie doesn't give you that much opportunity to know that much about them. Like, you know of them, and you know that people seem to be kind of scared of them and they seem to have some kind of reputation, but you don't know why that reputation is the way it is. You don't know what they do. You don't know much about them at all. You have some really tense scenes, but you're also just sitting there kind of like, okay, you guys are country and mean, but what else is there really about you that I'm supposed to be scared of? Like, what is the point here? Like, what are you guys? Who are you guys? The movie's not really interested in those questions. As a result, Let Him Go was a pretty good movie, just above average, that I'm going to leave in the Daily Planet. Those are my thoughts on Let Him Go. Have you seen it? And if you have not seen it, what is your favorite Kevin Costner movie or your favorite Diane Lane movie? Leave that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.